Good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible? If somebody.
Yes,
Okay, thank you for the confirmation. Um, yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the State Health System Resource Center, Gujarat, I warmly welcome all the participants to episode 8 of the Health Reach webinar series Research, Education, and Advancements in the Community Health. Today's session is on the antimicrobial resistance. It is one of the most pressing public health challenges, making this topic both timely and highly relevant. Our speaker for today's session is Dr. Niyati Trivedi, Professor of Pharmacology, Medical College, Baroda. She will be sharing her valuable insights and practical learnings through a clinical case of discussion on the topic before the last antibiotic fails. Lessons in antimicrobial stewardship from a clinical case. Before we begin, I request all the participants to kindly keep their microphones on mute throughout the session. You may post your questions in the chat box and we'll take them up during the question and answer sessions at the end. Without further delay, I invite Dr. Niyati Trivedi to take over the session. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. And thank you all the parties. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
Okay. Thank you all the participants to join in this session on antimicrobial resistance. And now, as all of us know, all of us have experienced, it is an important topic. And what I would want is that, what I would like to, I'm sorry, I was slightly distracted. I want all of you to actually participate in this. It should not be a very one-way monologue, because now in this era of YouTube shorts and Instagram reels, it is very difficult practically to have concentration for continuous 1 hour. So I would like all of you to please actively participate. All of us must have some or other information to share, some experiences to share in the field. So please participate actively and let us make together an enriching experience rather than just a boring one-sided monologue. So first of all, I would like to share my screen. I hope I'm allowed to do so, because I'm not able to share this. Uh,
Um, Ma'am, your screen is visible.
are you able to see the slide?
No, ma'am, slide is not visible yet. But yeah,
Okay.
ma'am, it's visible now.
Okay. Okay. Can you see the slide now? The full screen mode?
Yes, ma'am, it's visible.
Yes, ma'am. Okay. So should I start?
Yes, ma'am, sure.
Okay. Thank you. So, as the topic suggests, before the last antibiotic fails, and you can understand what I'm going to talk about for next 1 hour. As I already requested, let us be an interactive session rather than just a one-sided 1 hour monologue. Now, I would like to, like, this is the outline of the journey, how I would like to present this 1 hour session. In first half of the session, I will be talking about why we need AMSP, why are we talking about so much about AMSP nowadays. And then in the second half, it will be about how to apply AMSP measures in our routine day-to-day practice. Before I begin, I would like to know the audience. Do we have clinicians in this audience? Can some of you please tell me your specialty so that I can have a session accordingly, because AMSP would be different for a microbiologist and pharmacologist, and it will have different applications for a clinician. Do we have any clinician here? I'm not able to see the comments. Am I audible?
yes, ma'am. Yes,
Okay. So do we have clinicians? I'm not able to see the responses, if there are any. भाई कुछ बोलो.
Um, uh, Please write in the comments.
I hope the chat is open for everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
So do okay.
I request all of you to write your profile to discussion. The comment
नीचे
section.
मैसेज में कंटिन्यूअस चैट इज टर्न्ड ऑफ लिखा हुआ है.
Okay, let's start. If you have some questions, please feel free to ask, maybe in between or maybe at the end of the session. So this is what is the journey planned. As I said, in the first half an hour, first maybe few minutes, we'll be talking about why AMSP, and then later we'll try to answer how we can implement AMSP at our own institute, practical application of AMSP. So as I said, we'll start with a case. So this is a patient, a female patient of 50 years of age, known case of hypertension with diabetes. She was admitted to a hospital which is nearby her residence. She lives in a village in the periphery, and she was admitted to that hospital with the complaint suggestive of congestive heart failure on 4th of January 2025. And on admission, as with symptoms of CHF, one ICU indwelling catheter was inserted, and she was started treatment for congestive heart failure accordingly. Later on, subsequently, she developed fever and abdominal pain and some other symptoms, and she was started with some antimicrobials. However, gradually her condition deteriorated, and she was transferred to a multi-speciality hospital in the city on 24th of January. So she was being treated in the hospital nearby her residence for nearly 20 days, and later she was transferred to a multi-speciality hospital. On admission to a multi-speciality hospital, her provisional diagnosis on admission was heart failure in a known case of hypertension with diabetes with fever, and then several investigations were planned. So on arrival, she was on linezolid, piperacillin tazobactam, and ceftriaxone. Now there is no documentation on whether patient had some investigations before starting this antimicrobials or they were started empirically. So there was no clear documentation, but they were started from 13th January. That is for sure. That is almost 10 days after her primary admission in the peripheral hospital. So further details were not documented. There was no documentation whether the antimicrobials were started after any microbiology diagnosis or not. It was not sure. So on admission to this second multi-speciality tertiary care hospital, along with other investigation, her urine sample was and blood sample was sent for microbiology diagnosis, and piperacillin tazobactam were stopped, and ceftriaxone was stopped, and linezolid was continued. So this was probably her 10th day of, 20th day of linezolid when she was admitted here. And 13 January. So it was nearly 10 days of linezolid when she was admitted. And then she was started with meropenem, normal dosing, that is 1 gram IV 8 hourly. Now, this is the timeline, complete timeline. As I said, she was admitted to this multi-special. There is some disturbance. Everyone can please keep their mic off and please ask. You turn on your mic whenever you want to ask any question. So on 27th of January, her urine culture report arrived, and that showed Klebsiella pneumoniae, which was resistant to all 11 antimicrobials that were tested, and blood culture was negative. So this is the list of all antimicrobials which were tested, urine culture report, and as you can see, it was Klebsiella pneumoniae was resistant to all antimicrobials tested, and it was intermediate to colistin. So accordingly, meropenem and linezolid was continued. Though there was, this is again interesting here, it was meropenem resistance, but then patient was continued with meropenem and continued with linezolid, and clindamycin was added. Now there is no documentation whether there was any probable diagnosis of maybe some gram positive infection in some other part of the body, or maybe they were suspecting of enterobacter, but linezolid was continued here. And even clindamycin was added, that has again gram positive coverage primarily. So this is how she was continued her treatment with. And on 6th of February, in between, again, urine and blood culture was sent along with other investigation. And here now the development is on 6th of February, the blood and urine both showed presence of Klebsiella pneumoniae, again extensively drug resistant. So you can see here the report of blood culture. Urine culture report was almost identical, and this is blood culture report, which shows resistance to all tested antimicrobials and cholesterol resistant. So primarily what is SIMS is the COTI probably has now extended to bacteremia and maybe sepsis. So sorry for the disturbance. And so this is so what we are dealing with here is an extensively drug resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae, resistant to all antimicrobials that were tested and intermediate to cholesterol. Based on this report, finally meropenem and linezolid were stopped. That is now almost after 3 to 4 weeks of meropenem and linezolid, linezolid was stopped, and then colistin and vancomycin were started. So here I have not mentioned the dose for colistin and vancomycin because over a period of time, there were a lot of dose adjustment made in colistin and vancomycin, most probably to deteriorating in response to the deteriorating renal function. Again, multiple culture where, there were a lot of efforts to save this patient. Multiple investigations along with microbiology diagnosis were sought for during the course of treatment. And on 26th of February, again, in response to the culture, ceftazidime avibactam was started. This is the much lower dose than what is as per the, 1 gram is for ceftazidime. So it is much lower dose than what is recommended, and that is in response to her deteriorating renal function. Subsequently, eventually, over a period of time, multiple efforts, exhaustive efforts were made, as you can see from the case file, to save this patient. Lot of variation in the dosage of antimicrobials were done, but eventually the patient did not survive, and one more battle was lost against the organism. Now, we'll take this case as our reference point, and we'll discuss the antimicrobial stewardship based on this case. So the primary concern here is, the most alarming concern here is isolation of extensively drug-resistant Klebsiella pneumoniae. And let me tell you, this was not a single case or rare case of extensive drug resistance. Most of you dealing with AMSP already know about it. Now, this is the graph of resistance of Klebsiella pneumoniae isolated from blood and CSF across India. The hospitals, participating hospitals were all for India, were all mainly ionized. And so there is no reason to believe that our data would be any way better or different than this. So what you can see here is, there is the Klebsiella pneumoniae, there is more than 50% or nearly 70% resistance to all commonly used antimicrobials. Most alarming is carbapenem resistance. What we see here is, this is Indian data, of almost 50% resistance to carbapenem. And most of you will agree that actual resistance data across India will be even higher than this. So carbapenem resistance is the most alarming feature that we observe nowadays. And that this resistance data is not limited to only Klebsiella. Now, this is the same report where you can see almost nearly more than 50% resistance for Acinetobacter also. And in fact, WHO has actually come out with a list of high concern or high priority organisms, and all of them show such high resistance. Especially what is alarming is carbapenem resistance. See here, carbapenem resistance of Acinetobacter, which is as high as almost 70%. Now, usually what we think is in this era of consumerism, what we think is अरे ये नहीं है अपने पास, now we don't have option of all these antimicrobials to treat our microorganism, नए आ जाएंगे, right? This is the very common belief कि भाई नए आ जाएंगे, right? Now see this, how much we are right about that. You know, this is the data of timeline of discovery of antimicrobials. Now what is important here is whatever antimicrobials that we are using today, they were all developed in the during the phase of 1940 to 1980. After that, no new antimicrobial, especially for gram-negative organism, no new antimicrobial or I mean, if try to be technically correct, no new molecule has entered into market, especially for gram-negative organism after 1980. So there is and most of the pharmacologists here, they will agree to me that it takes nearly 15 to 20 years for any new drug to enter into market, and we don't have much options available in the pipeline right now. Hardly one or two, as far as I know, are right now into the clinical trial, phase 2-3 clinical trial, right? So we are not hopeful of having newer molecules for gram-negative bacteria in near 15-20 years, right? So we will have to deal with or manage with whatever we have available right now. And as you can see here, the choice is very limited. We don't have much options available, especially for gram-negative organisms. And it is the gram-negative organisms which are actually most troublesome right now. They are the most, you can say the threat organisms currently. And so what has resulted into an imbalance between what is available and the data on resistance. As I said, this has resulted into current AMR crisis. And if this continues the way it is right now, if we don't take any steps currently right now, then the future may not be very bright. Now this is the data on, in 2014 in UK, one of the very renowned economist made this projection. He used economic modeling and made this projection that by 2050 AMR would be the reason for highest number of deaths globally. And as per that prediction, every 3 seconds in 2050, every 3 seconds, one person will be dying of AMR. Now, at that time, this report, because it was coming from primarily an economist who was chairing the session, so it was not taken very seriously at that time, because we usually don't predict and take unless it comes to our own gate, till our own gate, we don't take them threat seriously. So this was not taken very seriously, and no much efforts were made, especially not at least in India that I know of, right? So now this is an eye-opening report. So this is the first global detailed surveillance on AMR conducted under GRAM project, and it was published in Lancet in 2024. Now what we see here is it shows that in 2021 deaths due to AMR, directly because of AMR, 1.14 million. And deaths associated with AMR, I mean, patient had some other comorbidity and developed infection. And together, infection was not the primary reason for death, but it helped, or it was associated with mortality in nearly 5 million people worldwide. And this report projected that, now this is coming from healthcare professionals, right? Technical experts. So as per this, AMR can be directly responsible for nearly 2 million deaths in the world and will be associated with nearly 9 million deaths by 2050. So it is showing nearly 70% high in the death rate compared to 2021, right? So the prediction made by an economist was not at all wrong, right? And AMR is here now. Now, this is the global data. Now, what about Indian data? What about our data? Like we always think, apne saath aisa nahi hone wala hai, right? So let us go to this data. I mean, the same report, what it says about South Asia. It was a collective report for South Asia. And here what it says, in 2021, AMR resulted into directly, was responsible for nearly 3.5 lakh deaths. And it has projected that the mortality rate because of AMR will be highest in South Asian countries. India belongs to that, right? So um, uh, there is no, I mean, and one more alarming point here in this report was that it is the elderly people, people more than 70 will be the most adversely affected because of AMR, right? And this is the list of the pathogens which were primarily responsible or were associated with mortality, directly associated. It's not associated. They were directly responsible for mortality in 2019. So the point I want to convey here is AMR is here and now, and we must take appropriate steps on emergency basis. Otherwise, the future is not very, it doesn't look like a very good, it is very good. So before we start actually like taking any steps, कोई भी steps अगर corrective measures लेने हैं, तो सबसे पहले what we need to do is root cause analysis. What has gone wrong within maybe hardly 80 years of discovery of antimicrobial? Why are we talking about going back to pre-antibiotic era, right? What has gone wrong? What is wrong that can be corrected from our side? So that is root cause analysis. There are multiple reasons, and bringing us to this stage, naturally many of us have made joint efforts, but primarily WHO has very nicely summarized the reasons for AMR into this one slide. What for us, what we are concerned about, the left corner of the slide, that is over prescribing of antimicrobials and poor infection control in the hospitals. Other reasons like patient not finishing the course and all those, we'll not talk about it right now. We'll be concentrating on primarily over prescribing of antimicrobials. And most of us will agree to the fact that we already know that over prescribing is rampant. It is rampant, not only in Indian hospitals or some PHC, it is rampant across the world. Even US data, CDC US data shows that nearly 30% of the antimicrobials prescribed in US OPD is it is inappropriate. Now, when I say inappropriate, it is prescribed, when not needed, or more than what is needed, or the choice is wrong. So nearly 30% in US hospitals OPD are wrong, and the data here is no way better. Like what we have done, almost 50% of as per one of the prescription audit conducted across Gujarat, nearly 50% of antimicrobials prescribed in OPD, they were inappropriate, right? So over prescribing is rampant. Actually, it is a routine probably. So why are we, the same thing over here. Well, you can see here the rise in usage of cephalosporin in last 15-20 years. Almost, I can say 4 times higher usage of cephalosporin. Same way, the same slide, overall antimicrobial consumption in last 15 years has increased to nearly 150 times, 1%, right? From 200 to 2300 DDT to it has gone to nearly 6000 DDT, right? So over prescribing is rampant. That is what is seen over here. So why are we so much concerned about over prescribing? Or why are we concerned about inappropriate prescribing? Now, with every use of antimicrobial, no matter how rational it is, you are increasing or you are giving bacteria a chance to develop resistance against it. Now, you can see it over here. Any pool of antimicrobial will, any pool of organism will have minimum 1 or 2 organisms which are resistant to the antibacterial, to the antibiotic that you are using. Now, if you keep on using them, ultimately you will end up to a pool that is of organism which is completely resistant to the used antimicrobial. So any usage, whenever you use an antimicrobial, no matter how rational it is, you are exposing that drug to the organism and you are giving a chance to the organism to develop resistance against it. So what I always say this, that it is our social responsibility and moral duty towards our next generation to use our antimicrobial responsibly. right? So, but when I say responsibility, I mean to say use when it is genuinely needed, but don't just use it just for the sake of it, right? So it is our social responsibility, and that is what is antimicrobial stewardship. So AMSP, antimicrobial stewardship, it is the coordinator interventions which are designed to optimize the responsible use of antimicrobials with an overall objective to improve the treatment outcome. As I said, using an antimicrobial is always a double-edged sword. I mean, if you use it, it is good for the patient, and I mean, if you don't use it, and if the patient genuinely needs it, I mean, you are going to harm the patient. But when you use it, you are going to harm society. So it is always a double-edged sword, and it is always a social responsibility. Use it with response. I mean, use it with conviction that yes, the patient needs it, and that is why I'm using it. So now for next few slides, we'll be talking about various antimicrobial stewardship interventions. Um, like for it is a topic wide area, and there are multiple interventions which are tried. Many of them have been very successful, and many of them, I mean, all interventions may not be successful everywhere. So, as per our own hospital culture and I mean, whatever is feasible, we may decide what works for us and what will not work for us. So, AMSP interventions can be broadly classified into three different categories: persuasive, restrictive, and diagnostic. Now, let us discuss about them one by one, giving appropriate example. Now, persuasive strategies includes education and sensitization on AMR, public awareness campaigns, multidisciplinary rounds, and standard treatment guidelines. Now, taking the first one first, education and awareness. Now, education and awareness are something which is very simple to do, and that is something which is time tested. It has lot of I mean, PubMed is can show you lot of examples of how simple measure like education uh, and sensitization, creating awareness, can improvise the overall outcome. Now, when we say education and sensitization, there is one more method. I mean, that falls under the same group, is called prospective audit and feedback. Now, I will try and explain prospective audit and feedback with one example. Like, for example, what we have observed is surgical prophylaxis is one of the area where lot of antimicrobials are prescribed inappropriately. Right? It is one of the major area where antimicrobials are used in the state, in the medical college hospitals of the state. Right? So, suppose how this is implemented is, suppose we take up one unit or one department. मान लो सर्जिकल डिपार्टमेंट ले लिया या ऑर्थो डिपार्टमेंट ले लिया, and we'll have one-to-one interaction, or we'll have small group interaction with surgeon or surgeons. We'll try and understand their concern why antimicrobials are prescribed so widely for surgical prophylaxis. Like, for example, most of us will come out with the fact that we don't rely on IPC, and that is why the antimicrobial prophylaxis is used, and that is not wrong, right? IPC is the backbone for successful implementation of antimicrobial stewardship. If IPC is not good, not reliable, no stewardship strategy can be successful. So all of these talks is based on the fact that your IPC in the institute or hospital is what you can say is reliable or strong and effective, right? So suppose that is the reason. So we'll try and find out the reasons for inappropriate prescribing. We'll try and address the same, and then uh, educate about the likely organisms, likely drugs that can be effective on that organism. We'll see again how that training or how much that sensitization has improved the prescribing behavior. We'll go back to the group again. As I said, it can be one to one, or it can be a small group discussions. And though it is a time consuming method, but it is the most successful way of inducing behavioral change. So that is called prospective audit and feedback. Though, as I said, it is time consuming, but on a long run, it is the most successful method how you can improvise the antimicrobial prescribing behavior. The Another one is public awareness campaign. Now, again, we need to have good, you can say, support of the patients to implement AMSP appropriately, like public awareness campaign, especially on maintaining hygiene, basic hygiene. Maintaining basic hygiene can take care of lot of infection spread and transmission. So awareness regarding the same, awareness regarding preventing OTC use, over the counter use of antimicrobials, which is rampant in India. There is no control over that. Patient having some fever will go to a pharmacy, will get some 1 or 2 doses of antimicrobial, will come back happily, right? Fever gone, temporary, just to induce resistance. So prevention of all efforts made to be made for prevention of such OTC availability of drugs. Another very important area which has been left ignorant, we are ignorant about the same, is about the proper disposal of antimicrobials, right? It is again a topic by itself, and very important topic. And it is important that the public is, I mean, not only public, even healthcare professionals, they are ignorant about how actually antimicrobials should be disposed of. So all these factors matter a lot in spreading development and spread of resistance. So public awareness campaigns. The next important point is multidisciplinary antimicrobial stewardship rounds. Now, this is especially important for cases like us, what we discuss right now, especially for extensively drug resistant or multi drug resistant cases. Multidisciplinary round can be of a lot of use, can make a lot of difference to the outcome of the patient. Like, for example, if we talk about our own case, go back to our own case, here the patient had Klebsiella pneumoniae, which was resistant to meropenem. Now, multidisciplinary round usually involves of course, the clinician, maybe other subject experts, a pharmacologist, microbiologist, and nurse minimum. So, suppose we talk about our case, it was a Klebsiella pneumoniae which was resistant to meropenem. Now, meropenem was continued in this patient, 1 gram, it was continued IV 8 hourly, right? What could have been done here? I mean, I'm going slightly technical, into more detail into pharmacology, but what could have been done here is, instead of giving 1 gram, usually how it is given is 1 gram is given for over a period of 15 to 20 minutes, 8 hourly. So instead of doing that, the same dose or maybe higher dose, 2 gram, which infusion over a period of 3 hours, 8 hourly, but or infusion is to be given over a period of 3 hours. Now, it has been shown that, like for meropenem, has what you can say, it has time dependent killing. So continuing meropenem over a period, infusing meropenem over a period of 3 hours will maintain meropenem concentration in blood above MIC for a long period of time, for nearly more than 3 hours. So if you will go and Google or do in PubMed search, you will see that there are a lot of successful outcome. Like, if patient is treated in this way, if meropenem dose is adjusted, this is called PKPD, dose adjust optimization. So if it is adjusted like that, even patients with mild to moderate meropenem, this will not work for meropenem MIC more than 32, but mild to moderate meropenem resistant patient can be very successfully treated by this method. So this is how multidisciplinary round would make a difference to overall outcome, can make a difference to the overall outcome of the patient. And the fourth one is standard treatment guideline. Now, standard treatment guidelines they are designed based on the commonly isolated organism and its antibiogram. So they are very, you can say, ki ekdam say handy tool, a handy reference guide for us to decide your empirical treatment. They are to be used for empirical treatment. Now, for example, now this is the standard treatment guideline of our institute. It mentions all different clinical conditions, common clinical conditions that are routinely encountered in a clinic, and it will mention about the possible organism responsible, अगले पेज में था, and the organism and the drug which can be effective, that can be used empirically. Now, this is always prepared based on the antibiogram of the institute, so naturally it will give you a better idea and prevent unnecessary overprescribing of drugs. Now, government of Gujarat has made it compulsory for all medical college hospitals to prepare their own antibiotic policy, and so that they can be a ready reference for the clinicians, and it will prevent inappropriate prescribing of antimicrobials. Now, again, if we go back to our case here, the hospital, I mean, earlier hospital that prescribed three antimicrobials. One included ceftriaxone, then piperacillin tazobactam, and linezolid, right? Three antimicrobials were prescribed as empirical therapy for probably the site of infection. Focus was not suspected, focus was not mentioned, but naturally patient has been catheterized. Cauti must have been suspected. Whatever it is, whatever is the focus. Now, prescribing ceftriaxone and piperacillin tazobactam together does not make any sense because their spectrum are overlapping. When you are giving piperacillin tazobactam, there is no use of ceftriaxone. Ceftriaxone is not going to be effective. I mean, it is not needed actually. So unnecessarily, this patient was exposed to ceftriaxone for nearly 20 days. So this kind of errors, unknowing errors, these are the errors that occurs most of the time because of lack of awareness, and that can be prevented if you use such kind of antimicrobial policies. Apart from this, even our ICMR has come out with treatment guidelines that includes all common clinical infectious conditions that we routinely encounter. It is available in the form of an app also. So you can just download this app in your mobile. Just do search. I mean, whatever you want treatment for COTI or whatsoever is the clinical condition, just search for it and you will get the suggestion for the empirical prescribing. Now, these are IDSAP guideline. Again, it is available in the format in an app, and it is excellent and very exhaustive guideline. So, just as I say, type your condition, the concerned condition, and you will get the excellent guideline on how to prescribe, what drug to prescribe as an empirical therapy, along with the doses, along with if the patient has suppose renal impairment, how the dose should be changed. Even we have up to date also, but that is available on prescription, but these two are available free of charge. You can download them in their mobile and can get access to them. So this is about use of treatment guidelines, and of course we have institutional guidelines also. So use of such treatment guidelines can be very helpful, readily available, and can be utilized to prevent inappropriate antimicrobial prescribing. So after the persuasive measures, now let us go to another category, that is restrictive measures as an AMSP, antimicrobial stewardship. So when I say restrictive measure, primarily we can implement these two at our setup, that is formulary restriction and pre-authorization and automatic stop orders. Now, as the name suggests, restrictive matlab the authority is involved over here. Usually, it slightly affects the autonomy of the clinician, but still, for some conditions or for some antimicrobials, these are necessary. Like, for example, Government of Gujarat has made formulary restriction and pre-authorization, has implemented this as an AMSP tool across all 19 medical college hospitals. So how it is operating is that whenever a unit, any person, a resident or maybe any person in a unit wants to prescribe any resistant antimicrobial, I mean resistant matlab reserve antimicrobial. For example, it includes vancomycin, piperacillin, I mean colistin, like that, ceftazidime avibactam. So if anybody wants to prescribe such reserve group of antimicrobials, reserve group are those for which they are the like last resort drugs. So we want to save them for the genuinely needy patients. So anyone wants to prescribe such reserve group of drugs, they need to take prior approval of head of the unit. So head of the unit is assigned at the authority. So he or she will go through the data, and if it is, if the requirement is genuine, then only one can get the drug, right? So this is, though it affects, it has its own advantages and disadvantages, it does affect the autonomy, but this is to put a check on the inappropriate use of high-end antimicrobials. Like, for example, in our case, linezolid was prescribed to a patient who was suspected case of COTI. right? So usually, I mean, 49 for 80% of the case, 70-80% cases, it is the gram negative organism. And बहुत कम जैसे you may suspect enterobacterium या फिर streptococci, but primarily it is gram negative organism, and then it was continued for such a long time, right? So this kind of inappropriate use can be prevented. Even vancomycin was prescribed in our patient where there was no microbiology diagnosis of isolation of any gram positive organism. Still, vancomycin was prescribed and it was continued for nearly 3 weeks, right? So such kind of inappropriate use for just in case scenario, it was just for just in case scenario because there was no documented gram positive infection. So such kind of condition, I mean, inappropriate use of, especially of high-end antimicrobials, reserve group of antimicrobials can be prevented by implementing formulary restriction and pre-authorization. This is the form available in our institute. So anyone who wants to prescribe it need to have approval of HOU, and then only it will be available it will be made available to them, right? So the next restrictive intervention as an AMSP intervention is automatic stop order. Now, automatic stop order is that like for example, usually for any clinical condition when the antimicrobial is given, it is usually with a fixed time. Like for most of the infections, usually 5 to 7 days of antimicrobial prescription is sufficient to take care of infection. For some conditions like COTI, now depending upon the severity, it can be 14 days, right? So for all antimicrobials, to begin with, when you start prescribing an antimicrobial, it has to have a predefined stop order. Like for example, if you are prescribing meropenem for suspected COTI, in our case, so it will have a predetermined stop order on 14th day because it is a complicated and severe infection. Otherwise, as per the requirement, it can be 5 to 7 days. Right now, so right from the first day, it will be written as meropenem 1 gram IV TDS, first day of 14th day, second day of 14th day, like that, right? So on 14th day, automatically the antimicrobial, I mean, the patient will stop receiving that drug, right? Unless the clinician review it and write specifically that it has to be continued, right? So this kind of automatic stop order will prevent unnecessary prolonged use of antimicrobial. Here, linezolid was prescribed for more than nearly 4 weeks, right? Usually most of the time what happens is when the organism is sensitive to the drug, you do get positive response within 48 hours to 72 hours of treatment. Now some of them are slow responders, but most of the time you get response within 72 hours. So if you don't get response within 72 hours, you need to rethink your decision whether the choice of drug is right or wrong. Here linezolid was continued for nearly 3 to 4 weeks, and that was, I mean, without, and as what we saw was there was continuous deterioration in the condition of the patient. So automatic stop orders will be very effective or very important to prevent such such prolonged use of antimicrobials. Now when we did our PPS, what we have observed is for in certain institutes, some of the drugs were continued for months, 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. I don't know, probably they were missed, or I mean the patient continued receiving the drug. Such kind of errors can be prevented with this automatic stop orders. Next is diagnostic intervention. I will not be going into the detail of the same. It is just to make the clinician more equipped with the help of all these interventions, like the initial, like in our case, the initial hospital which was nearby the patient's residence, probably they did not have microbiology diagnostic facility available, and that is why empirical treatment was started and continued for a long time. So the availability of rapid diagnostic testing will be one of the important landmark if it can be achieved to prevent inappropriate empirical use of antimicrobial. And then we can have some high-end measures like availability of computerized physician ordered entry. So once you, like for example, once you type piperacillin tazobactam for the patient, it will see why you need to write down the indication why piperacillin tazobactam is required, पेशेंट का रीनल फंक्शन ठीक है कि नहीं, आपका डोज ठीक है कि नहीं, all these things. It is an added what you can say support to the clinician to prescribe the antimicrobial what you can say appropriately. taking into consideration the organism, the patient's other comorbid conditions, right? So all this are available, can be made available to the patient. So broadly, these are the various antimicrobial stewardship interventions that can be that are applicable, and that can be used. Now let us go back to our case and see how all this AMSP could have made a difference in outcome of our patient. So first of all, coming to the development of COTI, the patient was admitted for completely non-infectious condition. Patient had symptoms of CHF, a long-term hypertensive patient, and was admitted for CHF. Now, and patient developed COTI. Now, COTI is something which can be highly preventable. Nearly 60 to 70% cases of COTI can be preventable just by taking simple aseptic measures, simple bundle care approach. Even educating patients relative on taking care of catheter could have prevented the onset of the condition right from the first stage, right? So, strict IPC, and there are a lot of guidelines available how to prevent use of COTI, and basic measures like educating patients relative. You will, if you will do Google, I mean, thoda sa PubMed dekhenge, so you will find that basic measures of educating patients relative can prevent development of COTI. An important point here is that with every day of catheterization, the risk of COTI increases by almost 3 to 7 percentage, right? So unnecessary prolonged catheterization has to be prevented, right? Second important concern in our case was patient was started with empirical prescribing and no culture was obtained, right? So this culture, of not asking for the culture is very common. What we observed in our point prevalence survey that was conducted in all hospitals of Gujarat is that even in patient of ICU, I mean, this is not about some peripheral hospital I'm talking about. Even patient in ICU, nearly for 60% of the patient, they were receiving antimicrobial therapy without culture. They were on an empirical antimicrobial therapy even in ICU. Now, where we when we expect lot of MDR and XDR organisms, there also the empirical antimicrobial therapy for nearly 60% of the cases, though it varied in different institutes, but this is the average figure. Third point is that very poor documentation and empirical therapy was continued with no likely focus mentioned, right? So use of standard treatment guidelines or antibiotic policy of the institute could have helped preventing this inappropriate use of antimicrobial. As we discussed already, ceftriaxone and piperacillin tazobactam together, this could have been prevented if the antimicrobials were prescribed using the local STG. Now, another important point was we discussed about it, prolonged use of linezolid and vancomycin. Formulary restriction and pre-authorization could have prevented initial startup of these drugs because there was no direct indication. They were prescribed just to cover gram positive for, again, here just in case scenario, like a patient had Klebsiella, but maybe this can be effective, right? And automatic timeout could have prevented the prolonged use. Choice of antimicrobial, again, we discussed about it. 48 72 hours review could have prevented an inappropriate use as the patient was not responding to the drug. Multidisciplinary round, we discussed about it. So, and how meropenem, mild to moderate resistance to meropenem still can be managed effectively just by dose alteration, giving the drug for 3 hours instead of 15 minutes infusion could, can have successful outcome. You will find lot of such cases. In fact, standard textbooks mention this. In patient with moderate resistance to meropenem can be treated successfully by giving the drug 3 hours infusion rather than just 15 minutes, right? Same dose or maybe doubling the dose. So these are all various AMSP tools that we can use, that we could have used in our patient, and probably that would have made some significant difference to the outcome. So AMSP is successful. These are just 4 cases that I have mentioned, but as if you will try and find out, AMSP has been successful and Google is flooded with this. Yes.
Sorry to for interruption, ma'am, but as the link is for till 4
Yes, this is the last slide.
Okay.
So what
Okay,
I am trying to say is that AMSP works. and you will see lot of such success stories. Every one of us can play a role in making this a success story. And please choose your antimicrobials wisely. Sorry, please choose your antimicrobials wisely, or you will be left with no choice. Thank you, everyone. I would like to thank SHSRC. I would like to thank, SHSRC for providing me this opportunity to speak, and I would like to thank my resident Ruby for making the case details available to me. Thank you. So this is
Thank you so much, ma'am, for a very interesting and highly informative session. And we sincerely appreciate your valuable insights
thank you.
on this important topic. Before we move to the question and answer session, I would like to inform all the participants that the recording of today's webinar will be uploaded on the SHSRC Gujarat YouTube channel. So you are welcome to revisit the session on YouTube, and we encourage you to share it with your colleagues who could not able to join the today's webinar. So we'll now move on to the question and answer session. If anyone has a question, please type in the chat box below and raise your hand, and we'll take them one by one.
I think we can have it now with the mic on also, one by one.
Yeah, ma'am. Yeah. If anyone has having any question, please unmute yourself and ask.
So I think everyone do understand the importance of the topic and do understand how they can be, taken care of using AMSP measures. If there are no questions.
So I think we have not received questions yet, so we can wrap up the session. Thank you so much, ma'am, for your valuable inputs.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. Thank you everyone for joining it. Though the participation is very less, but we can have the pyramid approach. One person sensitized can sensitize so many other. Thank you. Thank you so
We
much, ma'am.
got one chat regarding very nice presentation.
Thank you so much, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.